special Friday night edition of Night Talk on PCNC. Let's get to the point.
Good evening. My name is Dick Hatch. I'll be here for the next 60 minutes with you and these amazing guests on Get to the Point. First of all, Tom Flaherty, been on with you before. What a wonderful thing it is to have you back again. Thank you very much for coming.
Great to be here.
As well, the youngest
trailblazer, history maker.
Luke
Yeah.
Ravenstahl, 23 years old when you were elected to City Council?
Correct.
All right, where do you get off? The rest of us have to wait until we've matured up.
I'm getting old now, Dick. I turned 25 next Sunday.
Did you really?
Next Sunday.
All right.
I was hoping that I'd have a Super Bowl Steeler game on Sunday on my birthday, but unfortunately it didn't work out.
You mentioned the thing that has broken my heart the worst. However, I forgive Roethlisberger. He, did real well. Also, we have with us Dr. Audrey Gusky.
Yeah.
Forgive me for my own bad handwriting. Duquesne University.
Correct.
Professor of marketing.
Yep.
See, this is what I've always wanted to be part of, is marketing, but I was never smart enough. So later we're gonna talk about that.
Love to.
Let's do a couple of things right off the bat. Let's talk about things that we're gonna get into here. I'm gonna throw one to you. The Iraqi elections. Are we doing something right over there? Are we doing something wrong? The Iraqi election's coming Sunday. What's going to happen? Tom, do you have any idea?
Well, hopefully there will not be the violence that Zarqawi and his crowd are threatening. The pollsters, I guess, or the pundits, are predicting a 25% turnout, hopefully, which is a pretty good turnout considering all the intimidation and threats over there. I can remember just a few years ago in Philadelphia, they would only get maybe a 10 or 11% turnout in the cradle of liberty in this country. So hopefully the election will be the first of many in Iraq. We have certainly paid a price so far, and I think we certainly should see it through. And but it will be a very interesting day. And it's quite interesting, Dick, there's a large turnout here of Iraqis that are
voting
residents here in the country. They say approximately 30,000 will vote here in major cities.
Luke, what do you think of what's going on in Iraq?
Well, hopefully things stay as peaceful as possible here over the weekend. I think it's on Sunday that the elections are scheduled to take place, and we're hopeful, but also we realize that each day our troops are over there risking their lives, and we just hope to see some sort of exit strategy. I think it's great that the elections are scheduled to take place, but we need to find a way to get out of Iraq eventually, and hopefully this is the first step towards it. And I'm confident that hopefully things will go well Sunday without much. Obviously there will be, the insurgents will do their best to hijack and bomb and go after those polling places, but hopefully our troops have things squared away. And I saw on the news earlier today where they are preparing closing off streets and things like that to protect those polling places as much as possible. And we're just hopeful for everybody's sake over in Iraq that it can be as peaceful as possible this weekend.
Speaking of bombing and strafing, do you have any idea why Tom is not running for mayor?
I do not. I'll let Tom speak for himself on that.
I feel bad today after making that announcement.
I woke up and I just didn't feel good.
And sometimes you wake up in the morning and then it hits you, reality. You just want to roll back over. But it was a very hard decision, and I went back and forth on it. It was always my goal to be mayor. I always wanted to be mayor. I felt I was right on the issues. I was the first one out of the blocks before Luke was on council about tax-exempt institutions expanding with no reciprocity, the debt of the city being the largest in the country, relatively speaking, per capita-wise, unfair assessment. And I thought I had the remedy with state revenue sharing, but unfortunately, the legislature and the powers to be brought in First Act 47, which I could live with. But then they brought in this oversight board, which I think the longer we see them is being viewed as a highly politicized a board made up of individuals, all of whom have received significant largesse or contractual funds from the governments throughout their career. They certainly are not shrinking violets when it comes to politics. And I think that's unfortunate. And I just made up my mind that I didn't think Act 47, the Oversight Board, was the solution, was the remedy. And for my own sanity, and probably for the good of the residents of the city, if I ever were to be mayor dealing with those two groups, especially the Oversight Board, which is here for 7 years, I, in good conscience, would probably be out there most days having a tussle with them. And so that's probably not good. We've had too much of that already, but it still continues. And every one of those individuals on that Oversight Board had a bone to pick with Mayor Murphy from the beginning. Right. I've been Murphy's strongest critic, perhaps, but nevertheless, it was a bad foundation.
We're going to get to Kaufmanns and Mayor Murphy and a whole bunch of other stuff. We got to take a break, so you stick around. We'll be right back right after these very important messages. Stick around.
I mean, it's just like a spur of...
We're back and talking about Tom Flaherty's haircut, as a matter of fact, which we have all decided is an astonishingly good new look for you. It really has. The glasses do it, the whole thing.
You got to use every advantage. Always have to change.
I'm not sure if you look like George Clooney.
No, I said it. One of those forward-looking haircuts,
right.
Like,
Gotcha.
like George used to wear them on ER.
On ER.
Of course, that was a few years ago. I'm just catching up.
I would just like to have backward-looking hair, anything like that. Dr. Audrey Gusky from Duquesne, I want to get to you because one of the other things that's happened recently is this whole merger in Pittsburgh with Kaufmanns on. Tell me about it. What's going to happen?
Well, it's still pending, so we're not quite sure what's exactly happening. But what they're threatening or suggesting is that the May company will be bought out by Federated. And Federated is Macy's and Bloomingdale's. And so what's going to end up happening, if Macy's is bought out, Kaufmanns would then become a part of that conglomerate. And what they've done to all the previous stores is changed the name to Macy's. And so if in the city of Pittsburgh, all we have then is literally Macy's, they're going to start closing stores throughout the western Pennsylvania area. And once again, for consumers, you're losing a lot of competition and a lot of options and alternatives. And so I don't think that's a good thing. You know, it makes me nervous when these stores start merging with each other. It's just too big.
All right, why is it a bad thing? I mean, other than just saying it's too big. I mean, tell me why. I mean, hey, if I bought the place, I'd call it Hatch. I would forget Kaufmann, too. What's the point?
Well, the problem is when, you know, department stores, first of all, are a dinosaur at this point in this country. People aren't shopping there anymore. They have so many other alternatives. They're going to the discounters, and they're going online, and so they're trying to save money, and they're doing anything they can. Department stores have been hurting for a while. And so what the major companies figure out is that they keep combining and merging with each other, then the assets will be strong. You take a company like Walmart, who's bigger than, you know, half of the world as far as developing countries go, the resources and assets they have. And to me, as a consumer trend expert, when you start looking at all of these stores getting bigger and bigger, and the consumers lose all of their options, prices get higher, quality of merchandise gets worse, quality of customer service also goes down. We as consumers want to have a lot of alternatives and places to go, and I think we're losing that very, very quickly.
So what are we going to do to help them stay in business?
Well, I don't think there's anything...
Tom's here. I mean, we can, you know, Tom and Luke, we can get some money for them if that's from the city.
That's right.
I'm sure.
Lazarus, Lord and Taylor.
Well, we'll just switch from USA.
Well, they better get it before the mayor leaves. You know, next mayor may not be opening up those
There you go. We'll get somebody to throw over the U.S. Air office.
But I mean, you look at the downtown corridor. When I was growing up, it was Kaufmann's, Gimbel's, Horn.
Yeah.
And then we had Lord and Taylor's for a while, and then the Lazarus Macy's situation, where the traditional Pittsburghers who love their horns, and losing that name, I think was a big mistake. They never put the money in, they never put the promotion in. They never really came into the city as I think they should have. And Lord and Taylor's, I mean, unfortunately, they never created a presence here. I don't know how many people I knew who worked downtown and said, we have a Lord and Taylor's. And who are they? And what do they sell? And so I think that, unfortunately, Pittsburgh is very conservative, very traditional. And if we lose the Kaufmann's name, Kaufmann's has been around for 133 years. I mean, Falling Waters is a part of the heritage of this area. So I think that's a shame.
Audrey, we lost a lot of jobs from Kaufmann's.
We did.
Didn't they go to Boston?
We did. We lost the headquarters, so they're
to
advertising all the
Filene's?
executives to Filene's.
To Filene's?
Yes, exactly.
And so that's owned by the May company,
Exactly.
too? Okay.
Yes. So you keep seeing all these these sort of what used to be mom and pop stores merging, and I know they're doing it because they need to get bigger to fight the big Walmarts and the very, very large
Targets,
stores.
yeah.
Targets.
Internet
Yeah,
shopping,
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Shouldn't they die? Isn't that the point of free market? If you can't support yourself 133 years or not, you're dead.
The strong have to survive. That's exactly right. But you also shouldn't be allowing all of these companies to keep merging and getting so big, the megalopolises, and it just seems to be too.
Why? See, I'm going to make you
Okay.
defend yourself. Why? I mean, Walmart is Walmart because everybody buys there.
Bingo, that's right. Why
Okay.
are you vote with your dollars, and so all of the consumers out there, they went into all these small towns, and people said we don't want Walmart. The minute they're there, where are they shopping? At Walmart.
Sure.
So it's the choices of the shoppers. You're exactly right, Dick, and that's what's happening. So we have nothing to say. It's out there, the shoppers and the consumers.
I think overall, the Walmarts of the world, hurt the economy and hurt those small towns, because you go to Walmart, you can get your tires changed, your oil changed, you can pick up the food and the bread and everything you need for the house. And, the neighborhood grocery store, the neighborhood business district, as a result, suffers from that.
Right.
And, I think it's unfortunate in a lot of the small towns, like you said, the rural areas where the Walmarts and the Targets are locating. That's where you see the business districts and those small communities, heading down the wrong way. And in my opinion, they need to, the Walmarts are hurting those, smaller towns.
Walmarts, Lowe's, Home Depot, all of these massive chains have created a new market.
Yes.
The new market is for high-end products that can no longer be purchased in Walmart, Home Depot, so on and so forth. Walk into any house, you're going to find a Home Depot lamp, a Home Depot fan, a Home Depot or Lowe's tile on the floor, something or another. And now everybody's starting to look for those tile places to see if they can't get something that everybody doesn't have yet. And I think it's going to reverse. I think it's going to come back. You're going to get all your basics.
Absolutely is. And things that come around, it's just going to keep shifting.
Speaking of cyclical, I have to take a break. We'll be right back with Tom Flaherty, Luke Ravenstahl, and Dr. Audrey Guski. I'll get this right. She's going to slap me telling you. We're back with Tom Flaherty, Luke Ravenstahl, and Dr. Audrey Guski. And if I have any bruises, they're well-deserved. We were talking about the whole concept of bailing, Lazarus and all the rest of it. What about U.S. Air with these reservationists and all that kind of stuff? You're the marketer.
Yeah. When I heard that, it was just devastating. And what's so interesting, Dick, is the day before they'd introduced this huge ad campaign, big one-page ad in the Wall Street Journal, clear skies ahead, and they're moving forward, and they had gotten they saving what, $1 billion a year with all their cuts, and everything looked peachy and everybody was happy. And then the next day they announced that they're moving the call center as well as the bag.
I saw Honorado on here last night, as a matter of fact, and he was saying that our offer was better than the Winston-Salem offer, but they turned it down anyway, and he felt as if they had used us, at least Ann was saying that she felt that they had used us as a pawn, to bargaining chip with Winston-Salem. Do you feel that way?
Oh, certainly. I think that's the problem when it's one thing when the United States bailed out Chrysler, which was a national firm, but when you get into the bidding wars between cities and states, it has to stop somewhere. And it's a tough political, humane thing, or perhaps inhumane thing to do, because there's so many jobs. And there's going to be, what, another 600 mechanics on top of the 800 and so that worked in the reservationist centers. And I mean, something has to be done, but as Executive Honorado experienced, you come forward with a nice deal and you're stabbed in the back. And so we see this happen so much. I think U.S. Air is just the latest example of it. And perhaps there should be some kind of national legislation that put in place to keep companies from actually blackmailing municipalities, because there really is no answer to it. You're either a real hard line and then people lose their jobs, or you try to come forth with subsidies. A lot of people call that corporate welfare, and maybe if you're lucky you succeed, but they just use it as a bidding war. Okay, we're getting this from Charlotte, this from Pittsburgh, this from Tampa. Raise it a little more.
I find it only smart on their behalf. I mean, they're business people, so yeah.
Cutthroat,
I'd love to,
definitely.
I want you to find me a place.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Honor Auto was saying last night that it was $10 a square foot for the office. I would like to get that deal. I'd like to be able to get office space at $10. But don't you think that we're trying to keep a dead horse? Isn't this trying to do the same thing with the steel industry, same thing with the coal industry? I mean, every time the industries change, we keep trying to hold on to the jobs.
Well, Dick, that's why I said politically it's very tough, because you have unions out there, you have family. I mean, it's a tough decision, and governmental officials have to do something. Sometimes they have to go over the pale, because especially with U.S. Airways, it's even beyond the humane considerations of people working and providing for their families, but it's the local economy. I mean, Audrey, you could probably give a dissertation on what the loss of U.S. Airways will do, the bruising ramifications.
What will it do?
Well, we won't have
from what I understand,
a national airline.
Well, I know, but from what I understand, you know, it's basically a dead horse. And other airlines are going to come in. This is not going to be, you know, the international side, but the cut rates are going to come in. Am I right?
Well, other hopefully discounters, Southwest is coming in. That's a good thing. But when you lose such a large corporation who has such a stronghold in the area, and you're losing, as Tom said, the jobs, but you know, think about it. If we lose U.S. Air, and the number of flights we now have, what, 200 a day? We had 400 or 500 at one point.
Right.
And so people aren't going to want to be traveling through the city or relocating businesses in the city, because how are they going to come and go and do business when they have to wait for flights?
I think it's important to note also that Southwest, I believe, when they start, is bringing in, I think, 10 flights a day, which is, it's a great start, don't get me wrong, but the significant loss of 200 flights a day would be extremely detrimental. And just to touch on a point you made earlier, Dick, about the $10 per square foot, I think County Executive Honor Auto made a good point, because he said at this point there's nobody in those buildings, the 4 buildings that they offered, and they're getting $0 per square foot. So his offer was, I think, like he said last night, I watched the show as well, he in his opinion, it blew them away. They didn't really think that him and the governor would come with the package that they did. And I think that's what frustrated him so much, is the fact that, you know, and we have to keep in mind that there are 800 families here that are going to be adversely affected from this, and I think he did a good job, and all he could, really. And I think that's what frustrates us all the most, is that the county and the state stepped up and did everything they could, and there they are turning around and going to North Carolina.
We're going to continue with this. Tom Flaherty, Luke Ravenstahl, and Audrey Gusky from Duquesne. We'll be right back. Don't go away. We're back. Tom Flaherty, Luke Ravenstahl. You know, for a guy who does this, I really am doing a bad job of all of this.
Tell him how to say your name.
Ravenstahl.
Ravenstahl. I said that. I know that, don't I? Didn't we say that?
We've done this before.
Didn't it? Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. We were talking about U.S. Air with you, and you were making the point about how much would be lost. How much for you and Luke? How much are we? Can we really hold on to any of this? I mean, isn't it just high talking? Aren't we just saying, oh, well, you know, there's 800 jobs, 800 families out there? I mean, what are you going to do about it? They're going to have to go someplace else. They're going to find other jobs. We're not going to do anything for them real except for talk to them,
Well,
right?
they claim about 10% of the people will probably relocate. That's the statistic. And so you've got, you know, how many?
80 people?
So about 80 will leave. So you've got about 700 plus that you're going to have to train, perhaps find new jobs. And the people that were in these positions were trained very well for the call centers. I mean, they've been in that position for 20 years or so. And it's a good position. And there are some call centers in this area that they could probably transfer to. The problem is a lot of the call centers are now being outsourced to India and things like that. And so that's a big issue. So I think the U.S. Air situation there, you know, it's just going to get worse and worse.
Well, what are we really going to do for these people? I mean, being very serious. There's 800 families. What are we going to do for these folks?
Probably not much.
Yeah. See, that's really...
I mean, unfortunately, and we always see it, Dick, and the elected officials, about all they can say after a while is retraining and resume writing and things of that nature. But this U.S. Airways, this is just the beginning, because they're saying by summer they're going to lose probably 3,000 jobs.
Yeah.
Down from 5,000 to 2,000.
I got this thought I've been holding during the whole program, okay? Here's my thought. This is an avenue for you to approach. What we do is we establish that these guys did not bargain in good faith. We have the prosecuting attorney sue them to get money to retrain the 3,000 people and find them new jobs. Would it work?
No.
Yeah, well.
Because there is no...
It's worth a shot, you know. Well, I'm a talk show host, that's
whatever
all I got.
money is left will go to the Steve Wolfs of the world.
Is there any way that we can legislate that to give them severance pays or anything real? And
well, I think Congress could, but once again, the lobbying power of corporations. Corporations run Congress for the most part. That's the worst aspect of being in politics, and I've held elective office now for 30 years, and in those 30 years, it has been a seismic shift. I have just seen the influence of money just escalate, and it's the worst. It is the evil of politics, and from what I read, and I certainly believe, Washington is just a cesspool, unfortunately, just awash in money. Both parties, unfortunately.
Speaking of a cesspool, we have another issue in Pittsburgh, and that is with the firefighters, with the mayor being accused of not negotiating in honestly, and this accusation made by, who was it made by, the president?
Joe King, president of Firefighters Local 1.
And then he's tried to back up and take it back?
Somewhat, I guess,
so
from what I hear.
My question is, what's City Hall saying about this? And I'll start with you, Luke. What's going to happen?
Well, we're not real sure, obviously. Anytime there's a grand jury investigation, it's serious stuff, and we treat it that way. I think it's through the media. Everybody's pretty familiar with, I guess, the investigation, and that is back when Mayor Murphy was up for re-election in the 2001 election. The question is whether or not there was a quid pro quo on whether the firefighter endorsement was traded in turn for the new contract that they received, and obviously that's what they're studying. I don't know. I think it's going to be tough for them to convict either the mayor or Joe King from any wrongdoing. It's obvious that the contract was awarded and the firefighters unions did turn around and endorse Mayor Murphy for mayor, but in terms of the legal ramifications, I do not know if any real legal law was broken, and again, we don't know what...
How would you even know if it was?
It's higher than me. I don't know the answer to that, but you know, they sat down apparently and had lunch, and at that lunch the agreement was settled, and I don't know who was in that room, and apparently that's what they're trying to find out in the investigation, but and I think at the end of it all...
That contract, did it have to be agreed upon by anybody else, or was it strictly the mayor's choice?
Well, there was an arbitration process that I think is the buffer that will be the life jacket for the mayor in this legal proceeding, and the arbitrator agreed to.
Yeah, I mean, somebody else. He didn't do it all by himself.
And
would you hold
I
that?
mean, to prove it.
Would you hold that? Because we got to take a break.
Sure.
And then come back with it, because we'll be right back. Right after these very important messages. Stick around. What's my thought about it? We're back. Tom Flaherty, Luke Ravenstahl, and Dr. Audrey Gusky. All right, well, I'm sorry. I'm doing very badly with names tonight. Why couldn't they give me, like, Tom Smith and anyway. You were mentioning about the deal with the mayor and Joe King and his accusation, and I'm going to prime you a bit.
Yes.
I think it's very suspicious that this firefighter would, in the heat of battle, make this accusation and then back off of it. I can't quite, you know, as someone who lives in the suburbs there, I can't quite figure out who it is that went after who, but it seems awfully political, because if I'm correct, the only thing you need for a grand jury investigation is a prosecutor to empower them, right? I mean, you don't have, there's not a big deal about impaneling a grand jury.
Absolutely, and as a famed jurist, I think it was Judge Cardozo, who was on a federal court, a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich. I mean, a prosecutor can lead a grand jury pretty much to do anything they want.
Because there are no rules. If I'm
there are no rules. There's no adversarial process going on where
there's no defense or anything like that.
Exactly. The people that go in front of that grand jury, they don't go in with lawyers. Their lawyers stay out in the hall, and they go in, and there's a prosecutor and there's a grand jury, and it's all one-sided.
So I mean, not that I have any great love and adoration for the mayor, but this is very political. This is not necessarily criminal. Am I right? I mean, how criminal can it be that you didn't do a great job of negotiating, or you made a deal when it has to go through an arbitrator and it has to go through other...
Well, I think a deal probably was made, but to fulfill the rigors of violating the Hobbs Act,
the Hobbs Act.
Yeah, the law has to show, as Luke said, that there's a quid pro quo, and it's usually the exchange of money. It's usually the exchange of something tangible, a car. You can use my condo anytime you want in Florida, where it's sort of a murky area when you get into the actions of public officials. I mean, actually, what is the difference between this situation, though there is a difference, and the situation of a member of Congress always voting for organized labor, and then when they run, they receive significant campaign contributions from labor or pro-business, Chamber of Commerce, what have you. But what I think really piqued the interest, not so, well, the grand jury's going to do what it's going to do in a legal sense, but from a public policy perspective, here the mayor probably did make some kind of deal. They all agree there was a meeting with Joe King, and I know firefighters, and overnight they switched their allegiance from Bob O'Connor, who lost by 600 and some votes, to Mayor Murphy.
699 votes, I mean,
exactly.
That might very well have made the difference.
Exactly. And then, then a year later, we're in distress status. The worst financial shape of any city in the nation, junk bond status, what have you, and the mayor points the finger at the firefighters. Now that
it wasn't for that lousy contract that you made me sign.
Now that's a real knife in the back, and so I can understand how Joe King, when that knife went in, he yelled what went on. I could understand his frustration, and then I'm sure his lawyer
suddenly realizes that he's in deep trouble.
Him that there's implications, though I don't think Joe King has any liability because he's not a government official, and Hobbs Act only applies to a governmental...
But there's no accusation that there was money, gifts, anything like this. This was purely, I'm going to give you a sweetheart contract if you will turn around and vote for me, right?
Correct. Correct. And
which
so
is basically politics at its grossest level.
Yeah, and it was extreme in this case in view of what the aftermath was. I mean, it was reprehensible because certainly the mayor knew what was on the horizon. I knew what was on the horizon. I mean, Luke, I think a lot of people in this city knew that the city was going to hit the wall financially. But nevertheless, had to win that election.
Well, yeah, that's that's pretty much it.
And
It's
so-
marketing and otherwise, you know,
and-
win the election, then talk
Yeah,
about
then,
what we're gonna
then
do.
deal with it, then take it
Speaking
away.
of winning an election,
Yes.
the mayoral race is coming in. I got 30 seconds. Who's in, who's out? Luke?
Right now, Michael Lamb, I believe, is the only announced candidate. I anticipate and will support Bob O'Connor, who I think Tom mentioned earlier ran the last couple times against Mayor Murphy. I think that he ultimately will be a race between Michael Lamb and Bob O'Connor, and Bob O'Connor will be the winner. And I have more than 30 seconds. I'd give you a little synopsis.
I'll
on
let
why
you,
I'm gonna
I
vote for
promise
Bob.
I'll let you come right back right after this. Tom Flaherty, Luke Ravenstahl. We'll be right back. Stick around. City Councilman Luke, you were in the middle of telling me about who's going to run in the mayor's race?
I was, and as we went to the break,
And you were actually telling me that I actually got a scoop.
correct, you did, and I probably letting the cat out of the bag here a little bit, although I think many people anticipate that Bob O'Connor will be in the race. And like I said right before the break, that I will support him. I think Bob is clearly the front runner at this point when he announces that he will run for a few different reasons. One is his experience, and you know, he's been there before. I think the city at this point needs somebody that has that experience, that's a stable leader. I think Bob has a good attitude and working relationship with pretty much anybody. You know, Bob is a good guy that'll sit down and listen to you. May not necessarily agree, but he'll sit down there and give you your chance. And I think most importantly is Bob's relationship with the governor. As we know, he worked for the governor over the past, I believe, 4 years. And that will help us in Harrisburg, where we know the city of Pittsburgh is not out of the water yet. And I'm confident that when Bob is elected to be the mayor, hopefully that he can build that bridge to Harrisburg and get the city the necessary revenues and the necessary legislation through Harrisburg that we need. So for a variety of those reasons, and I like Michael Lamb. I think Michael Lamb is a fine candidate and a very good guy, and I've run across Michael's path plenty of times, but I just think that the city needs a stable leader who's been there, been involved in City Hall, because we're, as Tom touched on earlier, we're dealing with Act 47 coordinators, oversight boards, and it's really unprecedented territory. And to have somebody in there, I think it's important that they've been there before, they're familiar with city government, and they'll lead us through this troubling times that we're in right now.
All right, and the station can expect that check for that free promo. We need an MBA with a nice personality. I don't know if you could do the both. My brother has an MBA. My next door neighbor has an MBA, but I haven't seen anybody that's personality would be political. But we need somebody who can just really whack this thing. This is silliness. We've got tons of potential here. There's no reason for us to be in this trouble, is there?
Well, I think it's, in fairness to everybody involved and those that have been around for years, it's, you know, this situation is not unique to Pittsburgh and the Commonwealth. There are cities throughout, and Tom could go in depth more with his revenue sharing ideas, but there are cities throughout the Commonwealth, the smaller ones, the Meadevilles, the Scrantons, that are on their way to the same situation that the city of Pittsburgh is in. And don't get me wrong, there were decisions that were made, for example, the firefighter contract that shouldn't have been made, but regardless whether or not that contract and some other things were done, this was inevitable to happen. For years we've been using stopgap measurements to balance the budget, and it was inevitable that this happened. And so
don't you have money left over from last year, City Controller? Don't you have money left over from last year that's being fought about right now?
Yeah,
it's going to go?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to be mayor, because we get this 3-page letter over $70,000, this diatribe, oh, how dare city council try to use $70,000 from their previous budget. And I said, oh, is this just the beginning of it? I mean, I thought this stuff was settled. And then we have the oversight board coming out saying, how dare the Murphy administration enter 5-year contracts with the police and the fire, after the oversight board agreed to it because they agreed to Act 47. And so, I mean, it's just crazy. But to answer your question, Dick, it should not have occurred. Pittsburgh should not be in the situation that it is in, and under the Murphy administration, the well-being of the city as a whole financially, I believe, was not the top priority. They spent their political capital on stadiums, which are good, which bring in revenue, and I know Audrey feels very strongly about this great year we had with the Steelers and that, but nevertheless, there wasn't a concern for the commonweal, the common good, and the taxpayers of the city of Pittsburgh. And as Luke said, virtually every major city in Pennsylvania has severe financial trouble. Problem is, there's no urban policy in Pennsylvania, nothing. And if Act 47 and oversight, which are higher taxes and reduced services, higher taxes for city residents and higher taxes for our suburban neighbors, if that's the remedy, now you got to pay that $52 when you come here.
Got me mad.
Right, Dick? If that's the solution, then we're going to have rougher times ahead, and there will be rougher times ahead.
What worries me too, the exodus of all the young people we're losing.
Yes,
with the jobs, and it's just getting worse, like a snowball.
Yeah.
And that concerns me. Teaching at Duquesne, we want to keep all our good people, the bright minds and the energy and the creativity that we have. But if we can't offer them that economic opportunities here, they're out of here, and it's just going to get worse.
Well, we got a lot of problems, but we need somebody who is in charge and somebody who is definitive, who has understanding, has an MBA, is good politician, and George Bush will be running for mayor. No, I guess not. I guess not. I guess not. My rebuttal.
Move in the city.
Yeah, right.
Wide open.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll be right back because Audrey wants to talk about the Steelers. All of us do. We'll be right back. We've now decided that Tom is going to become a professor at Duquesne University. He's going to be emeritus.
Audrey's going to draw the contract up.
That's exactly right.
We'll get to that big buck.
Yeah.
And when we left, we were talking about the fact that we built stadiums and the political cap. Okay.
Yeah.
But now we got a team. We got us a, my wife and I were talking about, this is the first time publicly I can say that we realized that they invented a new position on the football team. Did you notice that this year? Yeah. They hand him the ball, and he throws it to other people, and they catch it, and he hands it off, and they run for yards. We're not sure. We think it used to be called two-bit back, but now we think they call it quarterback. Hey, Roethlisberger's hot, and I'll tell you what else. Just because of that joke, I want to say publicly, I think Tommy Maddox is a man. I think he is as good as they come. I hope whatever troubles he's got, that have made him have trouble, disappear, because I would love to have the two of those guys pair up next year. Tommy Maddox has just been first class the whole time. What do you think?
Well, first of all, Ben Roethlisberger has been a marketing phenomenon.
Yes.
I mean, he's on Campbell's Soup, and I mean, for a young fella.
Yeah, don't you wish you had a piece of that contract?
And he's the nicest fella too. I mean, he's just donating all that money to the tsunami victims. I mean, that was very generous of him. And he fits in with the image of Pittsburgh so well. Because he's from Ohio, and he's got this Midwestern type of an image, small town, and people loved him, and they just flocked to him. And I think that's a positive thing. I think even though they lost, and of course we're all devastated, because Super Bowl was obviously a huge dream and a Cinderella story. It would have been fabulous. But, when you look at what it did to the city, we had 2 playoff games, fabulous, about $20 million plus each game of money being brought into the area that wouldn't have been brought in. And just the image of the city was a very positive thing, because the whole nation was now watching us, and the majority of the nation were rooting for the Steelers. So, as Cowher said, wait till next year. But, I think this year, even though we lost, and it's a shame we're not in the Super Bowl, but I think a lot of positive things happened as a result of us doing so well, as well as we did.
Absolutely, especially after that 6-10 year.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that
oh, yes.
Miraculous.
Yes, we remembered that year, too. Luke?
I'm a big Steeler fan. I could go on. I agree with Audrey. It was really a Cinderella season, and if we had this discussion before the year, we would have been hoping for maybe a playoff berth, and here we are, 15-1, best record in the National Football League, and it was a great year. I enjoyed it. Obviously, it was a tough loss last Sunday, for everybody. But like Audrey said, it was great for the city. You know, we made some revenue dollars for the amusement tax, which was great for the city, and we know we need that. But we look forward to next year, and with Ben Roethlisberger at the helm, you know, it looks like the future is bright for the Steelers. And with the Rooney family, I think you touched on it, Audrey, about Ben's attitude and Ben's charisma. I think that's really a reflection of the Rooneys and just Steelers, like you said, the city of Pittsburgh, and hopefully Big Ben will be around for a while and leading us to Super Bowl. It's been a while.
Before we slurp all over Big Ben, let's also remember that we've got Hardings, who you know, thought for all in the world he was going to have to retire last year, who has come out spectacular. Troy Polamalu, who is my favorite Steeler trainer.
You just like saying his name.
I do. It's the only one I can say right. But I mean, you got, you know, Kreider. You got all these guys that, I mean, we've got a team now. I mean, when Roethlisberger fell down and for whatever reason wasn't functioning anymore, guess who came out? Who? The rest of the team. But I mean,
I thought you were waiting for the answer.
Well, sorry, I actually was. For a second there, I thought we were off the air. No, the rest of the team stood up.
Yeah.
The rest of the team stood up. And we've got Bettis and Staley.
Will he be back?
Oh, let's hope he comes
That's
back.
the big question.
I think he will. I think if he can pull one more year out, they'll be at the Super Bowl. If not, I want him back as a coach.
Yeah.
I want the guy in Pittsburgh. If you're willing to give $2 million up to stay in Pittsburgh, I want you.
Yeah.
You know, you belong to me now.
And what a great cheerleader he is.
Oh,
Man, he's boosted
And I
that
think
team
touching
around.
on the team aspect of it, Dick, like you were talking about, when you see Hines Ward this past week, you know, literally brought to tears. When you see somebody of that stature and that, you know, talking about Jerome Bettis, and that really signified the team. You know, I think that Coach Cowher, you know, instills in those guys, and you know, they were 53 men or however many they have strong, and
they were absolutely a team. They were absolutely a team.
Yeah.
I mean,
And hopefully
Staley
they can.
Bettis just kept marching down the field when Roethlisberger wasn't able to pull it off,
Maybe
and the
we need to
defense
learn
was
something
spectacular.
and transfer that to politics, the team spirit, or
yeah,
you know,
we could use it.
Yeah, right. Fat chance on that
Glad
one.
we have this tri-headed monster. You know, we got
That's tough.
Back 47 squawking and Oversight squawking and
it's not as easy as throwing the ball.
Luke being the only voice of reason down there.
I don't know about that.
And the youngest.
Tom Flaherty. I now have blown
The
your name
trifecta,
tonight.
see?
I have not had a drink. That's all I have to say. I
Well,
have
you
not
could
been
say
drinking.
Flaherty. You remember Bill Byrne?
Flaherty.
With
Tom Flaherty, City Controller, thank you very much
Great being
for
with
having
you,
been
Dick.
here. I really appreciate it. And you're right. You made the wrong decision, should have run. But I still think the idea of Duquesne, being a
There you
professor,
go. The
emeritus,
good life, right,
standing
Audrey?
It's perfect life.
good
Luke, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Dick.
I
Pleasure
really
being here.
hate you at 23 or something.
24 now.
24.
25 next week?
Yeah,
Right,
that's
25 next week. I was in some strange car with some girl in some state somewhere. Thank you very much for being here. Audrey, thank you.
It was my pleasure,
And I
Dick.
hope we'll get a
I
chance
look forward
to
to
be
doing it
together
again. Absolutely.
Thank you, Ann Devlin, for the opportunity to get to the point tonight. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. For the rest of you, we'll see you again. Join Ann on Monday, 9 o'clock, right here.